Well, welcome back, everybody. This is Pucks from the Pine Tree Pod. I'm your host, Benjamin Kennedy. Happy Friday evening to everybody out there. What a week we have had here in the NHL with these playoffs. They have been so much fun. I had an interesting night last night putting my kiddo to bed. He went down, 7:45, 8 o'clock, and I always go and, lay down with him. And of course, I start dozing off a little bit. And I'm waking up, I'm looking at the scores of some of the games, and he finally goes to sleep. And I had that moment where I know if I get up, I'm just screwed, right? Not because I'm going to be up until midnight, 1 o'clock. I can't just get up and watch, the end of the Toronto game. I've got to stay up and watch all of it. And that's what I did. I got up. I was so tired. I just want to go to sleep. Man, these playoffs have got me hooked. Got me hooked. No surprise. I hope everybody's been enjoying it out there. We're going to get to an update here on the NHL playoffs, but a few other things I want to talk about today. A few local things and some other news and notes from around all the other hockey that's out there. We're going to start with the Maine Nordiques. Playoff schedule is set. Of course, that is our team up in Lewiston, Maine for the North American Hockey League. Game one of the divisional finals is tonight. They are playing the Rochester Junior Americans series starting out there in Rochester, New York. Puck is dropping at 7 p.m. Game two will be tomorrow night, also at 7 p.m., also in Rochester. That series, it is a best of five. So the series will come back to Lewiston for game three on the 9th, and that'll be a 7:30 drop up in Lewiston at the Carousel. And then as needed, game four will be on the 10th in Lewiston. That's a 4:30 afternoon drop there. And then if as needed, game five will be back in Rochester as they have home ice, 7 p.m. there. So, of course, got the two games at Rochester. Game three, anybody local there on the 9th looking for something to do, go get those tickets. Um, Worth the watch, worth the price of admission. Really good brand of hockey. So good luck to the Nords. Let's advance. Let's keep that thing going. They've had just a great year. A little bit of expansion news from a couple different leagues. We're going to start with the PWHL, announcing over the last few weeks here that they are adding both a team in Vancouver and in Seattle. So the Pacific Northwest going to be represented in the PWHL. Both teams set to start play next season in 25-26 season. So I think this is great. I believe Seattle is going to be playing right there at Climate Pledge Arena where the Kraken play. Awesome venue there. So good for the team. Of course, the league now up to 8 teams. That'll be, I think, about the third season will be next year. So I'm not going to be shocked to see this grow to 12 and 16 here over the next few seasons. Very, very successful so far. Here in their second season, they are winding down, of course. Just one game left for the six clubs. The record's right there. Montreal in first place with 50 points. Toronto right behind them with 47. They have both locked into the playoffs. Two more spots to lock up Boston. The Boston Fleet in third with 44 points, followed by Ottawa with 42. Minnesota with 41. And then, of course, you have the New York Sirens, 37 points already eliminated. So a couple more spots for the other three teams there to fight over. It looks like Boston should be in pretty good shape to earn that playoff spot. So good on the girls. More expansion news dropping today in the ECHL. Rio Rancho, New Mexico has been announced as the 31st franchise to join the ECHL. So congrats to New Mexico getting a team. They've had other minor league teams in the past, so good to see them be re-represented here in professional hockey. They're going to be given play in 2026-27 season and looking like they'll be part of that Mountain Division. So awesome to see that. The ECHL growing, trying desperately to get to that 32, trying to get to 32 to match up with the NHL before the NHL goes to 34, 36, right? So great to see that. Good news there. Of course, we do know that Greensboro, their club, the Greensboro Gargoyles, are set to start playing next season. So that'll be Team 30. And then New Mexico will be right behind them with Team 31. So good good stuff there. Can't wait to see what the logos, everything will look like. A lot of fun. And hey, when will our Maine Mariners get to go out to New Mexico for a series? That'd be quite the trip. Of course, in the ECHL, the playoffs are continuing on. Their divisional finals are all starting tonight. Here in the north, you have Trois Rivières and Norfolk. Down south, you've got the defending champion, Florida Everblades, and Orlando. Orlando upsetting South Carolina. South Carolina was just a juggernaut of a team. Of course, that's the Washington Capitals ECHL affiliate. And Orlando it took that one. They upset them, so that should be a fun one. Out in the Central, you have Toledo and Fort Wayne, and in the Mountain Division, Kansas City and Tahoe. Of course, Tahoe, a team we saw here in Portland this year, another very good team. That's Vegas Golden Knights ECHL affiliate. So, plenty of hockey there. If you have Flow Hockey, a great way to watch and keep up with some of this minor league hockey going on around the country. And talking about next season, the ECHL should be releasing their next schedules here in a couple of weeks. So for you Maine Mariners season ticket holders, for those of you just trying to plan out for next year, in a couple weeks' time, we should have a real good idea of what the schedule looks like, what the out of market schedule looks like, and the teams coming in. So that'll be always a lot of fun to check that out. All right. Moving on to coaching news. Plenty of, the crazy coaching carousel. It is on. It is on. Of course, we know of all the openings. There were 8 openings. Now there are 7. Mike Sullivan has signed with the New York Rangers. Previously, of course, was an assistant coach there for 40 years, going back a ways, and did coach Drury, their GM, years ago as well. So all sorts of interconnections. Emily Kaplan from ESPN, she's reporting it's a 5-year deal and looks like the highest annual salary for a head coach in NHL history. Not surprised. Not surprised by that at all. New York, they typically do outspend others like Boston, for their coaching hires. So as much as I'm a little disappointed, he was certainly my top guy that I want to see as a Bruin. I'm not surprised. The Jacobs family, they are not known to overpay for coaches. I think that's putting it mildly. When you think about this year, they went through from November on without one of their assistant coaches. They did not fill Sacco's position when he took over for Monty. So they like to save that money where they can. So yeah, no surprise. The Bruins were out on Sullivan, couldn't get him in, but good for him. Good for the Rangers. Listen, this is the Rangers team. They were President's Trophy winners a year ago. Yeah, they've got some things they got to work on in that roster. We'll talk all about that as we get into the summer. But you got the goaltender, you got some real nice pieces there. I think a new voice with Mike Sullivan. Yeah, they should be right back in the playoffs. They make a couple tweaks here in the summer, they should be right back in the playoffs. So good for Mike, good for the Rangers, and that's one of 8 jobs now under wraps. Other news, looks like reports that Joel Quenneville has been out in Anaheim, has taken a couple interviews. They've also been interviewing, I think Jay Woodcroft has been there. I think David Carl from University of Denver has been talked about there in Anaheim. But it seems like right now a lot of rumors around Quenneville and Anaheim. We'll see where that goes. We'll see if Quenneville does get a job this time. I mean, you would assume with 7 left, he'll get hired. You wonder if he's on Boston's list. I'm not hearing a lot of chatter about that right now. I don't know if that happens. If you're a Bruins fan looking for that, I don't know if that actually happens. And then I know another crazy rumor that came out a couple days ago was that John Cooper may want to move on from Tampa. Heard that being reported. I cannot remember the reporter's name, so I do apologize. But all sorts of lines and connections being made to Utah, where he has some connections with the ownership out there. But announcing today there in Tampa, Breezeborough, their GM saying that Cooper is coming back next year. No changes being made. He's got, I think, one more year on his contract, and he'll be right back there behind the bench for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So good there. I think he's got to be the longest tenured head coach. And I think he maybe even was before Sully moved on from Pittsburgh. He's been there a long time. Uh, and just as a hockey fan, glad to see him stand there. He's been just such a fixture there for Tampa Bay. So just taking a look at Boston right now. So uh, Sullivan's off the market. Who should be on the Bruins' radar? I know there's a lot of chatter around this right now. I'm just kind of thinking about it with how we know the Jacobs family spends money on coaches. They're not going to overpay. They're not going to be the most expensive ones out there. You heard what Neely and Sweeney had to say last week in the end of season presser, where it doesn't necessarily need to be somebody with NHL head coaching experience, but somebody with NHL exposure. So it does kind of lead me to really wonder about Jay Leach, our assistant coach. Of course, had stepped away from the organization, was out in Seattle before coming back, and of course before that was in Providence as the head coach for the P Bruins. So has that experience coaching young guys, and with this now being a younger team, he's not going to cost you a lot. He knows the organization. Is that the fit? Is that where we want to go if we're the Bruins? I think some would say, yeah, you want to keep him. He might be that next big name that comes up. Other teams, he has been on some lists. I don't know if he's taken any interviews with other clubs at this point, but eventually he's going to be a head coach someplace, if not here. And if you bring in a different head coach, does Leach stick around as assistant, or do you lose him altogether? Um, part of the organization, he'd be, again, far less expensive than some of these other names that are out there. Uh, but do the Bruins just want to turn the page completely and look at a completely, different voice from outside the organization? I think there's a lot of people that would rather the Bees do that. I think there's a lot of us that would like to see that in the front office as well, have some new voices and new eyes on this. Um, would keeping Jay Leach around and having him be the head coach just be more of the same next year? I don't know. I'd be fine with it. I'll go on the record and say I'd be fine with Jay Leach as our coach next season. I do think he's an up and comer. There's a reason they brought him back, a reason they wanted him here. And I'd like to see him take a shot. Listen, unless the Bruins can pull a few rabbits out of their hat in July, this will not be a playoff team next year. I don't expect that, truth be told. So I think Leach could come into a situation where, hey, we got a bunch of young guys. We got to regrow and rebuild this foundation. I think he'd be a great coach to do that with, to give him that opportunity. Um, it'll be fun to watch, though. Be curious to see where that goes. But other names that are out there, Rick Tocchet, of course. We haven't talked about Rick Tocchet yet. Leaving Vancouver, what a mess out in the Pacific Northwest. Truth be told, with both Seattle and Vancouver right now, but especially Vancouver, you want to talk about a team that is kind of rudderless right now. Go look at the Canucks. And if you're feeling bad as a Bruins fan, at least you're not out there. I mean, you're losing your coach. You traded JT Miller. You missed the playoffs. Now, all the talk about Quinn, Quinn Hughes maybe wanting out the door and wanting to go play with his brothers. I mean, Pedersen's a mess. Oof, just let's be thankful, if any Bruins fans out there listening, that you're not a Vancouver Canuck fan. But you know, Tocchet, declining to stay there, wants to come east. He kind of claiming family decisions. He's going to get work. He's a little bit like Sully, where he's going to. It's just a matter of where he wants to go. Obviously, all the lines right now being drawn to Philadelphia, where he played before. He has ties to Pittsburgh as well. I think he would be a great fit for both of those locations. And I mean, I'd love him in Boston. I think with Sully gone, he might be my top guy that I'd want to bring in. Does he want the job though? And again, he's going to command top dollar. I think that might take Boston right out of the mix for Rick Tocchet. But a name to watch: David Quinn. David Quinn, of course, assistant there in Pittsburgh with Mike Sullivan. Quinn, with plenty of Boston ties himself, was a finalist when Jim Montgomery was hired before Quinn went to San Jose. He's had a couple runs at it, was with the Rangers, again with San Jose, been with Sullivan there for a couple of years now in Pittsburgh. Maybe he just takes over there in Pittsburgh. There's a lot of talk about that. But another name to consider, and one that be curious if the Bruins give him a look. What about Jay Woodcroft? Of course, former Edmonton Oilers head coach, fired last year, beginning of last year, when they got that after that awful start. His name is being kicked around. Of course, Anaheim's talking to him as well, so he may resurface. Lastly, well, two more names here. I guess I'll start with David Carl. David Carl, of course, the University of Denver head coach. Denver, just a very successful NCAA program. He'll be in the league at some point whenever he wants to. He's already turned down Chicago. I think Anaheim has talked to him. I don't see him on the Bruins radar. I think he'd be great. But again, he's going to command top dollar. And I think there's a lot of thought right now he just stays in Denver, at least for this year. So, uh, what about Bruce Boudreau? Bruce Boudreau, of course, been out of the league now for a couple of years. Last coach in Vancouver actually was Tocchet, who replaced him. And Bruce is a regular voice on the NHL Network radio. Yeah, a little bit more of the old school kind of guy, but good character guy. I think can be a good team building type guy. I don't know if he gets another shot in the league or not, but I do want to put his name on this list because he's got a ton of experience, and for a team that's trying to rebuild foundationally, would he be a fit here in Boston? I don't know, but I think worth mentioning at the very least. So with Sullivan, now signed and out of the way, I do think you're going to see more of these jobs start to get filled. So again, if you're Sweeney and Neely, you want to get your guy, go get your guy. Go figure it out because these guys are going to start to get cobbled up, and you don't want to be left, holding the bag with nobody to give it to, right? So should be a lot of fun. So plenty of off ice news around all the playoff stuff as well to talk about. And then, of course, coming up here, I think it's in 3 days on the 5th, we will have the NHL draft lottery. So all the ping pong balls are going to go in. We're going to see where the Bruins end up. I think it's the fifth best chance at the number one overall pick. Um, we'll see how that goes. Obviously, if you're in the top five, you're fine. I think if you happen to fall, sixth, seventh, eighth, you're a little bit frustrated. But as long as you're in the top five, I'll be happy with that. So let's take a look at the playoffs so far. Of course, the East is all set. We are all set. Toronto and Florida, Washington and Carolina. Both of these series should be immensely fun with a potential for plenty of nasty. I think that could present themselves in both of these series. Of course, you've got divisional rivals here that know each other so well they kind of hate each other. On top of that, I'm really looking forward to seeing Marshy and Carlo on the ice in those separate sweaters. That's going to be a lot of fun. See if there's any interactions. Of course, Marchand plays on the edge. Carlo's more of a not a super dirty player at all. But I'll be curious to see how they interact or engage on the ice. And then, of course, you have Stolars, goalie for Toronto, heading back to play his former club. So all kinds of storylines there. And then you think about Washington and Carolina. I just think black and blue, baby. I just think it's going to be a black and blue sort of series. Could be low scoring. I don't know. The league likes scoring, but more of a defensive type of battle. I think it's going to be a very physical battle. Um, Where's Freddie Anderson? Is he going to be part of this series? I guess he was practicing per a bunch of different reports from today. So can he hold up? What about Thompson? He looked good to end that series for Washington. Was dealing with injuries as well, but that's going to be a really fun series. And I think stylistically, these two series will be very, very different. But I think there'll be plenty of nasty to go around. It's going to be a lot of fun. For some of the teams that have been eliminated, it was really nice to see Ottawa and Montreal get in there and push a little bit. I thought both teams really did a good job of, pushing the narrative, pushing their opponent around. I thought Ottawa did a great job to hold their own against Toronto, and Montreal loses in five, but they did make it easy. And they did not make it easy on Washington. I think that it's just great experience for both clubs. And I think they both are getting something out of this they can build off going into next season. Not ideal, right? For teams like Detroit, teams like Buffalo, teams like Boston. Man, we're miles away from free agency before we can really look to next season. But man, that Atlantic division could be loaded, and it could be loaded for a while. I don't see Tampa going down very far. I don't see Florida going away anytime soon. Toronto is Toronto. They might look a little different next year. We'll see about the Mitch Marner situation, but Those three teams kind of holding their own. If you got teams like Ottawa and Montreal that are going to try to be perennial players here, I mean, good luck. Good luck if you're one of these other teams trying to move up. Will be fun to see what happens, but that Atlantic could continue to be real beastie moving forward. Probably my biggest disappointment so far in this first round was probably Tampa Bay. I have to say, I expected a whole lot more out of the Lightning in this round. Of course, I picked them one of the series I did not get right, but they averaged 2.4 goals per, and their power play only 11.1%. Florida, just their PK did a really great job of stifling them, not allowing them many opportunities as well. I just expected more pushback, you know, with the type of players they had on the ice, with that goaltender, all the playoff and championship pedigree. I just expected more from Tampa. It's fine if Florida wins. I just, how in 5 games, how are you just going to get smoked off the ice in 5 games like that? There'll be some questions. There'll have to be some retooling for Tampa. I do think this is very disappointing. Um, yeah, I just, again, a little bit disappointed by that. Let's turn out west. Of course, we're all set with the Golden Knights and the Edmonton Oilers, both locking that in last night. Full value, though, to the Minnesota Wild for hanging in there with Vegas. Really made that a way more interesting series than I ever thought it would. They really pushed the Knights more than I expected them to. Like I said, I had them way out of the playoffs, and to see them push the Knights around, make it hard was great to see. And of course, last night did mark the final time we will see Marc Andre Fleury on the ice. Future Hall of Famer, of course. So congrats to him on an amazing career. I was a little miffed. I think it was ESPN I was watching on. Of course, they had the Edmonton game starting, so they didn't finish the allowing us to see the handshake line at the end of that game. And that's what I'm here for, man. I love the handshake line. It's such a great tradition in hockey. I know they had to get out for that other game, but I had to go back and watch other feeds and see the handshake line and just see, Flurry kind of got off the ice pretty quick, probably pretty emotional, but great career, great guy, big time jokester in the dressing room. That's wildly documented. He's going to be missed. He was so great for the game of hockey. Um, and again, kind of appropriate that his last game was against one of his former clubs there with Vegas. Turning to the Knights, of course, we did talk about this earlier in that series that they needed more out of their big stars heading into game four. We kind of asked the question, is it adjustments that Cassidy need to make, or is it just they need to get more out of their star players? And I think we learned it was just they need to get more out of their star players. And that happened. Stone ends up with 4 points. Eichel with 4 points. Theodore with 4 points. Hurdle had 5 points. Of course, Hurdle was the one guy that was going early in that series, kind of kept them going. So good to see their stars show up and end that series. For the Oilers, it's just another one, right? If you're Edmonton, it's just like, well, here we are again. Another first round win against the LA Kings. 4 years in a row. Just, I mean, Groundhog's Day if you're a Kings fan. I don't know how you feel right now. If you're an LA Kings fan waking up this morning, um, did you even go to bed last night? Like, just, you're up to nothing in this series. Home ice finally on your side. Like, something was different this year. This was supposed to be the year for the Kings to at least get by Edmonton. You have home ice. You have the better goaltender. Edmonton, goaltending's a little bit beat up. They were a little bit beat up coming into this series. No Ekblad for Edmonton. Like, everything was lined up for the LA Kings to win this series and win it going away. Listen, you're up 2-0 and you're up 3-1 in game three. You're like what, a period and a half away from being up 3-0 in the series. And for some reason, man, you let the Oilers get up off the mat. Like, you had them down. You had them down. I don't know if I'm a Kings fan, how I'm probably having a hard time getting out of bed and getting going today if I'm a Kings fan. Gonna be a lot of finger pointing, this season or this, off season. The blame game is gonna be on full mode, probably already is for the club, and, should be a really wild off season for this team. Like I said, this was supposed to be their year to get by Edmonton, and instead they just piss it away. With everything from poor play. Listen, plenty of poor play to go around, untimely mistakes, but also plenty of bad coaching decisions from that bench, from Hiller. Do the Kings move on from their first year head coach, Jim Hiller? Yeah. Do they move on from Rob Blake? Of course, LA King legend that been running the club for a while now. Do they move on from these guys? Do they clean house after this? I mean, yeah, you've been to the playoffs these 4 years, but same result every single year. There's no question that Hiller got completely outcoached in this series. Um, and just, I think for me, just really showed he was not ready to handle the pressure that comes with making key decisions in the playoffs. Couldn't handle that. Listen, we know coaches always get a little hot under the collar with the media, but really was, uh, I would say, borderline unprofessional. After some of those games, yeah, I don't know. Of course, I'm such a big oh my goodness, I'm forgetting his name. The Trez coach, the guy they fired. Help me out, people. McLellan. My goodness, I'm a big Tom McLellan fan, and so I wasn't happy already when LA fired him to give Hiller the job. And he had a good regular season, I think, but just a lot of the warts came out here in the playoffs. So it will be really curious and really interesting to see. Again, with some of those names kicking around, I hate Quenneville's still out there. You got Lavulette's out there. Tockett's out there. I don't think Tockett wants to go west, but hey, if I'm LA, I'm I'm having some really long conversations today about this. I really am. But something to watch here over the next few days and weeks to see what happens out there in La La Land. Of course, tonight, game 6 for Winnipeg and the St. Louis Blues. Game starting at 8 p.m. Eastern from St. Louis, Missouri. The Blues have been absolutely full value so far. Extremely hard to beat at home. What have they won? 14 or 15 games in a row at home. I mean, sure, that bubble has to burst at some point, but they are really, really hard to beat at home. All eyes are going to once again be on Connor Hellebuck there for the Jets in net. 3.96 goals against it, 822 save percentage so far through these first 5 games. Yes, he did enough in game 3 or game 5 to win that one and give them the third win. And facing the St. Louis team at home, he may have to stand on his head tonight to get a win. Going to be a lot of pressure on him. He feels like he's moving slower in the crease a little bit. He's not injured. I don't think he's dealing with an injury. But you do have to wonder how much of this is just simply mental, simply overthinking a little bit. We all know that when we're having to think a little bit, like I was trying to think of McLellan's name, I kind of had to slow down a little bit, right? We do that in sports too. When you have to overthink, you move a little bit slower. You're not reacting instinctually. And man, when all it takes is just that split second, a split second slower, and you're just toast in this sport. You're toast as a goalie. You wonder if some of that's going on with Connor Hellebuck. I think for him, the key is just stop thinking, stop overthinking, get back to instincts, and just play your game. See puck, stop puck, simplify it, and he should hopefully, for him and for the Jets, be okay. Binnington been fine overall in this series. I think he's been really good. Been the better goaltender through 5 games, 2.65 goals against, and an 893 save percentage. Um, can he muster up more of that swagger? He's got that postseason swagger. As much as I hate to see it as a Bees fan, right? 2019 feels like yesterday. Um, but listen, if you need a guy to win you a big game, he's the guy, right? Bennington's the guy. So can they force a game 7? Can they get this thing back to Winnipeg? Should be a lot of fun to see. Only game on tonight, too, I believe. So they'll have the full attention of the entire sport. And then finally and lastly, we are going to have a game 7. Yes. Game 7, my wish came true for Dallas and Colorado. My favorite series so far in these playoffs. Of course, last night, the Avs forcing the game 7. They did catch a few breaks, right? A few bouncing pucks flying around, just pinballing every place, and clearly some unlucky goals against for Ottinger and for the Stars. Listen, I have been impressed with Dallas and their compete level, despite being down a couple of guys and a lot of odds against them. They've really made it hard for Colorado. But I will say this for Colorado: when they get just a little bit of space, they are fast. They are fast and they are precise. And Dallas hasn't let off the brakes much, but all it takes is just a little bit, and you got that freight train and Nate McKinnon and the rest of the players there. They're a hard team to stop. Going back to Dallas, though, Heiskanen and Robertson, of course, have missed the whole series so far, both listed as day to day. And I'm sure we're not going to get any concrete updates probably until pregame skate, right? They're going to keep all this close to the vest. Uh, can one of those guys get back? Can they both get back? This is it. This is game 7. I think if they're 75, 78, 80%, whatever the number is, I think they're out there. I think especially for Heiskanen, I think the defense really, really important. Um, yeah, we'll see. We'll have to probably wait until puck drop to find out. But yeah, man, this is one of those games where you're going to put the kids to bed early, shut your phone off, lock yourself away for 3 hours and just watch and just enjoy the intensity of Game 7 playoff hockey. It is the absolute best. Cannot wait for this one to get going tomorrow night. So, with all that said, I will have a round 2 matchup preview video coming out probably either Sunday night, Monday, something like that. Going to kind of wait for everything to kind of settle up for round 2, but we will have a preview video there, and we can make picks and laugh at me later. I had Washington dead on. I had Toronto dead on. Of course, I missed on the Carolina one. Missed on Florida, Tampa, so I was kind of 2 for 2 in the East. And out west, of course, I had LA beating Edmonton. Um, I picked both Winnipeg. I picked Dallas, and who was the last one? Who was the last one? Well, I had Winnipeg, LA, Dallas. Oh, Vegas, and I had Vegas. So I think I have a chance to be maybe 5 out of 8. So anyway, we'll go through that process again for round 2. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching and listening tonight. If you do like what you're hearing here, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button down below. It really, truly does help the channel out a lot. Enjoy the playoffs. Enjoy this weekend. And until next time, everybody, be kind, show love, and God bless.